Hey guys, the summoning weekend is finally upon us once again, and we have ancient summons available, and we have obviously a 2x normal summon event available. I'm going to do a separate video for each one. I have 20 of the ancient summons, and I'm going to do a bunch, probably nearly 150 of the normal summons. But this video is not dedicated to summoning. This video is dedicated to 2 new legendary lords that have been introduced, and they actually seem pretty good. So first up, and this one's kind of a sneaky one, we're aware of the other one vaguely, but this one I was not aware of at all. It is Cyrus. He is the 2nd legendary lord for the esotericist faction. Now quickly, if you want to get him, he is only available in the ancient summoning shards, unfortunately, so best of luck getting him this weekend. And he's not in the normal summoning pool. The other legendary lord is available in both of the pools. I think the logic, the reasoning they're going with is there'll be one lord available for each faction in the normal summon pool, and then they're going to have another legendary lord available in this special ancient summoning pool. So we won't get into that too much, but anyway, this is Cyrus. He is a new defender. He does magic damage for the esotericist faction as their 2nd legendary lord. He seems super interesting to me, mainly because he is the first summon hero. He can summon. That's actually super interesting. I'm really curious to see how this plays out. And as you can see, he has a 4-tile attack range in front of him. So I'm really keen on this guy. Hopefully I get him at some point. I doubt it, but it will be awesome, and congratulations to you if you do. And do please let me know how he is, because I am really curious about this guy. Anyway, let's have a look at what he does. We'll start with his stats first off. So he has pretty high defense, kind of high attack as well actually. Overall he's got pretty good base stats for a defender. His cost is quite high. I think, yeah, definitely quite high for a defender. I think most defenders are around 19. So he's definitely got high cost, but most esotericist heroes do have a fairly high cost, I believe. Kind of high attack interval, normal block value, normal respawn time, and a fairly normal rage regen. Maybe slightly higher, but I think it's about average. He has a 4-tile attack range on his basic attack, and he has a talent that allows him to summon 1 skeleton warrior within the 2 tiles ahead when deployed. So these 2 tiles here, there'll be a single skeleton warrior spawned, and they inherit a portion of Cyrus's stats from the sounds of it, and they can block and attack 1 enemy in front of them. So that's quite fascinating. I wonder if they can be healed. If so, then you've kind of got an extra defender. It gives him an extra block, but without him taking the damage, so it seems very good to me. He has a basic attack, which again is magic damage. It's complete AoE, and it's AoE for 4 tiles. So he'll be able to apply damage to the tiles that his summons are on as well, which I think is great. I mean, obviously he's not really going to do a lot of damage. His attack is not bad at 4.3k. It's actually quite good. So he might be able to do okay, but I feel like there's some like hidden modifiers that we don't know about that make defenders not as strong as fighters. But I could be wrong. It'll be interesting to see how much damage he actually does do, because it is a really good basic attack. 4 tiles in front, and it's complete AoE. It's basically Valkyria, and a Valkyria that's A1 as well. So yeah, very interested to see how good this is. Then we'll go to his ultimate next, Legion of the Dead. It only has a 650 rage cap, and that can be reduced down to 550, which is very low, which is not what you normally see with esotericists. The esotericist faction normally have high rage caps because their whole benefit, their lord benefits, usually reduce that. Anyway, when you activate this ultimate, it spawns 1 skeleton fighter, not a skeleton warrior, a skeleton fighter. It sounds like the warrior might be better because the skeleton fighter says possesses a few of the summoner hero's attributes and blocks 1 as well, whereas this one says a significant portion. So I'm guessing the warriors are harder to get hold of, but I don't know. We'll have to look into that. Okay, and both of them do say within the 2 tiles ahead, so I think it is 1 on each tile. So I think both of them spawn 2 of these skeletons. I think so. That's how it sounds to me. I wonder if they can stack in the tile. I'm guessing not. It's probably only, you know, they have to be 3 tiles. I don't know. We'll have to see how that is. It is a manual ultimate, so at least they won't get wasted. And other than that, it increases their and the hero's damage by 100% up to 150%, and attack speed by 60 up to 100 for 10 seconds. So I think that's quite good. And again, I'm going to keep checking this. He only has a 2.5 attack interval, which is actually quite fast. With 100 attack speed, that will probably push him down to like 2.2 attack interval with no other attack bonus, and giving him 150% damage bonus when he actually has a reasonable base attack, and he does 100% damage with his cleaving attack through 4 tiles. He might actually be a high damage defender. Again, I do think they're like fudging defenders' damage down a bit, so I'm curious to see how much damage he actually does, but on paper it looks like he would actually hit quite hard. Okay, so moving on to his passives. He is Lord of the Undead. So 40% up to 60% of the incoming damage will be absorbed by hero summons. When the hero receives fatal damage, one of the summons will be sacrificed to resist the damage. That is super good. You can just spawn these behind the boss, so you can get Cyrus to tank a boss, or tank something that's really damaging, and then just ult just before Cyrus dies, and then his skeleton will die on his behalf, and then you only need to survive long enough for his ult to come back, and you can keep doing that. So it makes him like some kind of undead legion commander who's just undying, pretty much. I didn't say this earlier, but I actually really quite like his artwork. I like the color palette. It's very ethereal and kind of spooky. So I do quite like the art. I think it's quite cool. The shield is quite interesting as well. There's some kind of, almost like an arachnid shape, because there's like, it almost looks like spider legs to me. I'm guessing that's not what they were going for. But yeah, I don't know. I think it looks cool. This seems to be very strong. I think this is probably one of the best parts of his kit. The fact that he can just negate fatal damage completely. It's not like he stands on 1 HP like a Regulus or something. He just negates the attack. So very powerful there. And he has King's Wrath. When the HP of the summons are below 50%, it increases its attack speed by 60 and damage by 30. This can be changed so it's a 50% damage increase and a 100 attack speed bonus. So yeah. I don't know how much stats these things take. It would be cool if it said, this one takes 70% stats and this one takes 50%. I don't know how that works, but that is his base kit, which on paper looks very good to me. Looks really good to me. But he also has a Legendary Lord ability, because he is the second Legendary Lord for the Esotericist faction. So we have the same one that we have with Venoma, reducing the skill cost by 25% for faction allies. And now we also have, when an ally is defeated or retreats, increases the damage of other faction allies by 25% for 8 seconds. Can only be triggered once every 12 seconds. So when one of your allies is defeated or retreats, and it doesn't say a faction ally, but I mean, the wording could be off there. But it sounds like any hero down dies or is removed from placement, everyone else gets an attack boost of 25%. It's incredibly niche, so it's not very good as a Lord benefit, but this is on top of the existing 25% cooldown reduction, so it's not bad at all, right? It's something you'd kind of want to build around it. If the skeletons are considered allies, then that would be insane for the benefits of this. If a skeleton warrior counts as an ally, then it's actually pretty good. That's just 25% damage bonus, like with an uptime of like 75%. Otherwise, if we have a look at the Esotericist faction, there aren't really a load of heroes that you can place and expect them to die regularly. These are kind of long-term heroes. Aatrox is not part of this faction, nor is Cerberus. So yeah, it's not really the ideal faction for that kind of mechanic. So I'm assuming it counts his own skeletons, and if not, then it's not quite that useful, I don't think. Other than maybe just deliberately pulling out a hero, having 2 heroes and just cycle placing them to try and get it. But yeah, I don't know, that seems kind of weird to me. And if it says when an ally is defeated and it doesn't have to be a faction ally, then yeah, you could use Aatrox, you could use Cerberus, as they kind of play around dying, though Cerberus's respawn time is long. Anyway, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that exactly plays out, how it works, if you do need them to be in the faction or not, and if his skeletons count or not. If his skeletons count, and or they don't need to be in the faction, then it could be very good. That is that. So let's take a look at his Awakenings next. So when summoning Skeleton Fighter, there is a 25% chance to summon Skeleton Warrior. So this is regarding his ultimate. So his ultimate normally summons these skeletons, but at A1 there's a 25% chance that it instead summons the warriors, which are stronger. So that should be quite good. We don't really know how different that is. I don't know why they can't have advanced tooltips and just tell us stuff. The second Awakening grants allies 5% penetration, which I think is similar to Twin Fiend, so I think that should be pretty good. Awakening 3 summons an extra Skeleton Fighter when deployed. So maybe it is just 1 by default. I don't. The wording's weird. I don't know. We'll have to see him play in a year's time when someone gets him. Awakening 4 gives him 1 extra rage regen autos. Not that much, but he does have a very low rage cap, so that is actually pretty good. That is not bad at all. And upon death or retreat, he summons 1 Skeleton Fighter. And this is the weaker one. Remember, the warriors are the stronger ones. Which is, I don't know. Awaken 5 doesn't seem very good. He doesn't feel like he's the kind of hero that you build around dying or despawning him. If this applies to your whole team, like upon an ally's death or retreat, summon 1 Skeleton Fighter, that would be dope. That would be incredibly powerful. I suspect that is not the case. Anyway, that is pretty much it for Cyrus from having a look at him. I think he seems very promising. I think he'd be great for blocking stuff. He'd probably be very good in Gear Raid 2. I think he would smash the faction trial because you want magic damage, you want tankiness, and you want some blocks for the enemies. I think Cyrus would absolutely dominate in the faction trial, the basic trial. Aside from that, he might be pretty good in Tide. Not many people put much focus on Tide. He's a defender, so you wouldn't really use him in Guild Boss. You could probably use him quite a bit in the continuous damage arena. And I think he would actually, because I run a really weird group arena team. I take pride in having my fancy strange strategy, and I think he would actually function quite well in the team that I'm running. I think you can do some interesting stuff with him in group arena as well, but you have to get quite creative. Other than that, I don't know. Void Rift, I think he would do pretty well. I think he's more of a campaign hero, basic trial, and Void Rift. I don't think you'll use him a great deal in arena. I think you could definitely find a couple of places where he might shine, but it really depends on how much damage he does. Overall, I think he would be a good character to have. He seems to scale on attack, and he seems to do pretty good attack, and he has ways of avoiding fatal damage, and he has nothing that scales on his HP. So I would actually build him offensively. I would ignore that he's a defender probably, and try my luck at building him offensively. Kind of like how I build Captain Reeve, just because I want to see how he is. So I would probably put him in just a DPS set to see how he does, I guess. Yeah, I'd just be curious to see how he does. I'm not sure if I'd use him as a defender. I guess I probably would. He probably wouldn't do enough damage to justify being in a DPS set, so I'd probably put him in Glacier and build a lot of HP, but still try to pick up as much attack as I can, and maybe crit if the gear is good enough. But yeah, I would probably try a hybrid build, like a bruiser. Anyway, that is Cyrus. I think he looks cool. I think his build is cool. I think he's quite promising. I would like to pull him. Moving on, the second legendary lord. This one we were vaguely aware of, which is Laya, or Laya. I guess it's Laya. I'm going to call her Laya. She is the first legendary lord for the Watcher faction. We finally got one, guys, and she actually seems very good. Before we get into everything, let's take a look at her cinematic video. I'm just going to show it to you and I'll disappear because I have seen this already and I think it looks really cool. Alright, so that is Laya. I think she looks pretty interesting. I think she's cool. I think it's nice that they realize the characters don't need to be standing because, you know, they're sitting on a podium. It makes sense for a platform hero to be just sitting down. Decent design. Nice that she's got a big harp rather than just a tiny usual thing. So I think she's quite unique as a design. I like the designs for these two lords. So let's move on to the actual details, shall we? She has a similar healing range. If you go to max level, you can see her actual range, what it will be when she's maxed out. And this is very similar to Eloin or Midan, the AoE healers that can heal the row behind them, as well as healing people in front. So yeah, nothing new there, but it is probably one of my preferred patterns for healing. I either like this or I like Vortex. I don't really use many of the other healers that heal just kind of a column in front of them. I like the either surrounding AoE healers or I like Vortex. I think those are the two best patterns for a healer. So having a look at her cost is 16, which is pretty good. I think that's kind of around average, maybe slightly cheaper, a point or two cheaper, so that's good. Her attack is 5.4k, which off the top of my head I think is quite good. Her HP is a little bit better than average as well, I think. I think a lot of healers have around 9 to 10k max, I think. Attack interval of 3 is kind of average, I think. I don't think it's anything special, so nothing stands out to me from this. So we'll take a look at her skills next. Her talent. Every 3 basic attacks increases the next basic attack's healing by 50%, so you could see potentially wanting to build attack speed on her to proc this as much as possible. Her basic attack grants heal to 3 allies in range, and this scales on her attack, and all heals now scale on the target's max HP. That's kind of standard, but she scales on attack. That's her primary healing stat. And yeah, nothing really to say about that. It's an AoE heal, so similar to Eloin, so it's our second like AoE healer that's a legendary. Her ultimate Divine Grace, a 1200 rage cap, which is pretty high, and that can be reduced down to 1000, which would help quite a bit. It lasts for 10 seconds, which doesn't get changed, and it restores 10% rage for all allies in range immediately. Afterwards, it restores 1% rage for them every 2 seconds, lasting for 10 seconds, but with upgrades, this can go down to every 1 second and 1.6% rage regen, which becomes pretty good. That will actually beat Eloin, but Eloin's is permanent, so, you know, In conjunction with Eloin, it's great, plus you actually restore rage cap, which would be great with some of the esotericist heroes who have very high rage caps. For her actual faction, it doesn't really matter because most of her faction heroes suck. But yeah, so this is cool. It's another way of getting rage up faster, and it's a big chunk that you can get. Her own rage is quite high, and this specifies that it doesn't affect her. So she doesn't get this benefit, which is unfortunate, but understandable, because otherwise it just effectively removes either 120 or 100 rage cap from her ultimates. That's the way their Divine Grace works. It doesn't do any healing, it just restores rage and restores rage over time. It's pretty good. So over 10 seconds you'll be restoring, with max skill, around 26% of someone's rage cap, which is pretty good. So next up we have our first passive, Celestial Ascendance. When the ultimate is triggered, applies a damage increase to all allies in range and increases their damage by 5% every 5 seconds, stacking up to 1 time. The effect lasts until the ultimate is over. So this is during her 10-second ultimate. She will grant a 10% damage increase, and additionally, every 5 seconds down to 2 seconds, it will grant between 1 to 3 stacks, depending on skill ups, of 5% damage. At max, that will be 15% damage increase. And max, that will be 15% damage increase on top of this one. So then her ultimate will restore rage, and it will grant everyone like nearly 25% damage. So that is pretty strong as well. And her cone, although it's not crazy like Vortex or Gwendolyn, it's quite a reliable one. You can get most people in Guild Boss within it. So she could actually be a very good contender to Eloin in Guild Boss. She may actually replace Eloin. Although Eloin has more reliable rage regen, we still get some from Laya from her ultimate Divine Grace, but we also would get damage increase on top. So she may actually beat out Eloin. I'll be very interested to see if she becomes a new meta. And then her second passive, Ethereal Resurrection. When allies in range release their ultimates, they will restore HP equal to 150% of Laya's healing multiplier. And then leveling it up increases her multiplier by up to 50%. So yeah, it just passively grants healing to allies when they pop their ultimates, which could be pretty good with low rage cap heroes such as Salazar. Not too much to say about Ethereal Resurrection. It's okay, I guess. It doesn't really fit in with the rest of her kit. It just allows her to ambiently provide some healing. And finally, we have her Blessing of the Light free, as she is the legendary lord for the Watcher faction. So 15% stats is normal, and periodically increases damage and healing multipliers by 30% for 20 seconds. More faction allies there are on the team, the more frequently the blessing takes effect. And after healing faction allies, increases their damage by 15% for 10 seconds. This last bit is pretty cool actually. This top one is good as well, the middle one, but it's hard to say how regular that is. There aren't many Watcher heroes worth using. But this bottom one is cool if you can find other Watchers to use, or put her with an Ajax and boost Ajax's damage. I guess she's a pretty good pairing for an Ajax actually. So that covers her skill kit, her toolkit. She seems quite good. She should be a pretty effective healer. She doesn't really have anything to boost her healing, really, other than her talent a bit. But the main thing is she boosts damage and she boosts rage regen. You would definitely use her in conjunction with Dolores in a lot of content, I think, if you're aiming for like the maximum damage output. So she's not really replacing Dolores, which I am grateful for. It would be kind of a pain if they released, such a limited, rare hero that was just a straight up replacement for Dolores. So yeah, Laya seems pretty good. She seems very strong. No issues from me there. I think she'll be pretty good. So next up we have her Awakenings. So her first Awakening enhances her first passive, and basically the damage lasts for 5 seconds more after the ultimate ends. So this will last for 15 seconds instead of 10 seconds. So this is actually pretty good. I think this is actually quite an important Awakening for her. It's just an extra damage increase for longer. So the 25% damage increase will last 5 seconds more. I think that's worth it. Her second Awakening will grant 5% extra attack for faction allies, which is kind of, normally would be pretty good, but her faction allies kind of suck, so I don't think it matters that much. Her third one grants the restore rage to herself as well, so again, going from 1200, it will reduce it down to 1080, or from 1000, it will reduce it down, of course, to 900, which I think are quite meaningful. And she'll also be getting the ambient rage regen percentage as well. So it's not just the 10% bulk, but she'll also get the passive regen. So Awakening 3 would actually be really, really, really good for her. I think it would be very important. Rage regen is good for her because that's her whole thing. She needs to get through rage quickly to keep her uptime on her ultimate. And finally, increases the initial damage that her passive Celestial Ascendance applies to allies to 15%. So instead of 10%, it will become 15%. So all of her Awakenings are quite good in my opinion. I think they all fit her kit very well. It focuses on the right things. I think the main one is Awakening 3. Not that you can really impact this, but if you've got a very deep wallet and you would like it to be shallower, then you can perhaps aim for Awakening 3. Awakening 5, although it's nice, is not that important. I think Awakening 3 is the big one. Anyway, yeah, I think she's great. I would definitely like to pull her, and I will aim to get her soon if I can. I think you could probably use her in Guild Boss quite effectively, and to be frank, I think you could use her almost everywhere. Healing requirements are not that high in this game, and her bonuses, if you notice, do not scale on her stats, which is actually a really good thing. That means you can build her tanky, or you can build her around her healing if that's, you know, if you need her to heal a lot more. I think you probably would just build her around healing. It scales on her attack, so just build her for as much attack as you can to increase her healing output. And you don't have to worry about trying to find the right stat components to boost her passives, because this is all she does. So I would probably try to build her with Rage Regen gear. I think it's called Mana Spring. I would put her in a Mana Spring set, and my goal would be to get her ultimate up as much as possible to maintain this buff as long as possible on the team. So yeah, I would give her the Mana Spring set for gear, and other than that I would just focus on attack and HP to make her survivable. Just get her Rage Regen as high as you possibly can, and yeah, try to get her ultimate cycling as much as possible. Mix that with making sure she's actually an effective healer still. But I think she would be a very good hero to have. My issue with her is that if you look at her faction, she has only 2 other legendaries in her faction. One is the Notorious Regulus, who is a decent defender in a bunch of content, none of which matters with his attack. He doesn't do damage whatsoever. He's probably one of the weakest defenders for his offensive capabilities. This guy just does not slap. So that kind of sucks. And then the other one is the infamous Crack, who could be renamed to Crap, because no one particularly likes this guy. He just doesn't really do a lot, and his attack, if you look at this, is just pants. This is like 2 rows in front of him. He's supposed to be a marksman, and he can't shoot past his feet. So from what I've heard, this guy is not reviewed pretty well. I have pulled him. I will have to find time to give him a proper go. I could be completely wrong. I've gone over him in a previous video. So far, everything I've heard about him is not good. So the biggest barrier to Laya is that her faction just does not really support her kit. I wouldn't really play her as a Lord, to be honest. There are some good epics in here for sure, mainly Brienne, to be honest. Brienne is really nice, and Tario is nice, and Iona is nice as well. But all 3 of these heroes, although they are actually some of the best epics in the game, they will fall off when you start to get more legendary heroes, and if you have the legendary Laya, you're probably going to have other legendaries as well that are slightly better than these 3 here. But by all means, if you've pulled Laya and you have these 3 heroes and you're not super far, you don't have a whole roster full of legendaries, then that will be a pretty good team still for sure. It's just towards the late game, I would not really use her as a Lord. I would just place her in a team and give her benefits to other allies. Anyway, that about covers it for this video. We have 2 new legendary Lords. One of them is much more available than the other, Cyrus of course being much rarer, so that covers it. Thank you guys for watching, best of luck with your summons this weekend, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, and bye-bye.